Have you ever stopped to think about this? On your computer, for decades, Microsoft Windows was basically the only game in town, a total monopoly. But then you look at your phone, and it's this epic, constant war between Apple and Google. Why are these two worlds so different? Well, it turns out the answer is hiding in a simple choice you and I make every single day. Let's dive in. So this is the central puzzle we're trying to solve. For what felt like forever, Microsoft Windows was the undisputed king of the PC. I mean, pretty much every desktop on the planet ran on it. But the smartphone world, it's a completely different story. It's a two-horse race, a constant battle between Apple's iOS and Google's Android. So what gives? Why did one market crown a single absolute winner, while the other forces two massive rivals to share the throne?
You might think the answer is some super complicated business strategy, but it's not. The real reason is actually rooted in our own behavior, a fundamental choice we all make about how we use these platforms. And here's the cool part. Once you see this pattern, you'll start to see it absolutely everywhere.
Okay, so what is this secret key? Well, it's a concept that economists call the homing principle, and this is the exact lens we need to finally understand why some platforms take over the entire world while others are stuck in a dogfight forever. It really all boils down to two simple, powerful ideas: single homing and multi-homing. First up, let's talk about single homing. It's pretty much what it sounds like. You pick one home and you stick with it. This happens when the cost or just the sheer hassle of using a competitor is way too high. I mean, have you ever tried moving years of photos from iCloud over to Google Photos? Or switching your entire company from Microsoft Office to something else? It's a nightmare, right? So when we're faced with that kind of friction, most of us just shrug, pick one, and stay put. And then you have the complete opposite of that, multi-homing. This is when it's just easy. It's no big deal to use a bunch of competing platforms all at the same time. The cost is low, the effort is minimal, so we don't have to pledge our loyalty to just one. We can play the field. And here is where it all clicks. This is the big reveal. Single homing is the perfect recipe for a winner-take-all market. Everybody flocks to one platform, it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually it's the only one left standing. But when multi-homing is the norm, it creates a totally different world where multiple powerful rivals can survive and even thrive right next to each other. So the most important takeaway is this: our behavior, our choices, they literally shape the entire market. So let's dig a little deeper into this winner-take-all effect. How exactly does this act of single homing actually build a monopoly from the ground up? Well, there's a fantastic classic example that shows just how powerful this force really is. This quote really nails the core logic. If switching is a huge pain, you just don't. Think back to the PC world in the 1990s. Buying a whole new Apple Mac was incredibly expensive, and trying to install an alternative operating system like Linux, that was only for the super tech savvy. Since all the software was being made for Windows anyway, we all just single-homed on Windows. And that simple choice, made by millions, created an almost unbreakable monopoly. But the all-time Hall of Fame example of this is the VCR format war. Back in 1975, VCRs cost a fortune. We're talking over $1,000. So families had to make one bet: Sony's Betamax or JVC's VHS. As it turned out, VHS got a tiny, almost insignificant early lead in sales, but that's all it took. Video rental stores, wanting to serve the growing majority, started stocking more VHS tapes. This kicked off a massive snowball effect. The more people who bought VHS players, the more VHS movies became available, which made VHS players even more attractive. Before you knew it, beta tapes were gone from the shelves, and those expensive beta machines basically became paperweights. That is single homing in action. But, you know, a winner-take-all bloodbath isn't the only way this can play out. So let's flip the coin over and look at the power of multi-homing, the reason fierce rivals can actually live together in harmony. I mean, think about your own life. Do you really only have one credit card in your wallet? If you're a gamer, do you stick to just one console? A lot of us are multi-homing in these markets without even thinking about it. The really interesting question is, why? The video game market is the perfect case study. Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft all managed to survive and do well because they actually encourage us to multi-home. How do they do it? Well, first and foremost, exclusive games. If you want to play Mario, Spider-Man, and Halo, you have no choice. You need all three consoles. And second, the cost and effort just aren't that high. Buying another console is a lot cheaper than buying a whole new computer, and you'll figure out the controls in an hour or two. And the credit card industry runs on the exact same principle.
We carry a whole wallet full of them because we want the best of all worlds. This card gives you amazing travel points, while that one gets you cash back at the supermarket. And then some stores even have exclusive deals with just one card company. By multi-homing, we can mix and match to get the best deal for any situation. And that allows a whole bunch of different companies like Visa, MasterCard, and Amex to coexist peacefully.
All right, now for the big twist in our story. We've seen how single homing creates a winner. We've seen how multi-homing lets rivals coexist. But what happens when a market built for a single winner is suddenly and violently forced to multi-home? Well, that's the story of how a giant can fall.
Because this is such a critical lesson in business. Even a monopoly that looks completely invincible can actually be incredibly fragile. All it takes is one big technological disruption, something that completely changes our daily habits, and the entire power structure can be turned upside down. And there is no better story of this than the spectacular collapse of Internet Explorer. In 2008, IE was on top of the world with almost 70% market share. We were all single homing because websites were literally built to only work on IE. But then, the smartphone arrived, and that changed everything. Suddenly, you were using IE on your desktop, but Safari on your iPhone or Chrome on your Android phone. We were all forced to multi-home. This was the beginning of the end. Web developers couldn't ignore the millions of mobile users, so they had to start making their sites work perfectly on all browsers. And once that happened, poof, IE's lock-in was shattered. People on their PCs were finally free to switch to browsers that were just plain better, like Chrome. And they did, in a flood.
So when you put it all together, what does it mean? It means you now have a powerful new lens, a new way to look at and understand the entire tech world that surrounds us. These two ideas, single homing and multi-homing, they're not just some dry academic terms. They are the invisible forces, the puppet masters, that are constantly shaping our digital lives, deciding which companies get to be monopolies and which ones have to fight for survival. And the real beauty of this framework is that it's not just a history lesson about VCRs and old web browsers. It gives you a tool to analyze the platform wars happening right now in social media and streaming services, and even in the wild new world of AI. It helps you see what's really going on under the hood. So I'll leave you with this thought. Take a look at your own digital life. Which platforms have you locked into? Where are you single homing? And on the flip side, where are you multi-homing, playing the field, and making these giant companies compete for every second of your attention? The answer tells you more than just your personal habits. It tells you the future of the entire platform economy.